Good afternoon, gang. David Gupple, Thinker Farmer here. Today I want to go over business titles or job titles and essentially explain a bunch of the different levels or options that a person has as a grazer or working on a farm business, kind of the different titles, the different, essentially the different, what a business or job title in an organization essentially tells somebody is what your role, what your responsibilities are, what your where you fit in the organization, the level of ownership you have in the organization. It answers the question, where are you in the business? And the reason I'm answering this question is because over the last month and a half, while I've been interviewing at a lot of different farms and places, I've noticed in general there is a lack of clarity and clear understanding of essentially what different job titles or different business roles are, and oftentimes there's a difficulty in identifying exactly where each person fits in a business. So even if you know what all these terms and things mean, oftentimes we don't clearly delineate and clearly express where everybody fits. And so for me, this is a big deal because any place I work, if there's one thing that's more fundamental to making the relationship or the business hum properly, it's knowing exactly what I am responsible for and knowing what I'm not responsible for and knowing what everyone else is going to take care of. So humor me for this video, if you know, and I'll go through these terms. So all of these, I had essentially 6 different breakdowns, and I'm kind of listing them in ascending order of importance or in ascending order of ownership. So essentially this number 1 here, intern apprentice, this is essentially at the bottom of an organization or a farm business. So an intern or apprentice is his role essentially in the business is learning on the job. He has very little skills, very little knowledge of the business. He's almost always going to have somebody guiding him, directing him, telling him what to do. And an intern or apprentice does not have really hardly any ownership in the business. If they mess up, unless it's something really bad, it's generally understood and expected that they're an intern, they're an apprentice, they're learning, they don't know everything. The second level is a worker or a technician. In most businesses, that would just be called an employee. I'm calling it a worker or a technician because in certain farm businesses, your exact pay structure may not be an employee structure, and a technician is a word that definitively focuses on the fact that he is skillful at performing certain tasks. He has technical experience. So a worker or a technician has usually worked there long enough to have gained some level of proficiency at doing certain things, and while they may not be able to be trusted with making major farm decisions, you can trust them to fulfill certain tasks. You can tell them, go move cows by themselves. You can tell them, there's a tree on the fence, we need to get that cut off. Take a chainsaw and go do that and splice the fence. A worker or technician can do jobs and do them right. As you progress on, you come to a contractor, and a contractor is, you make a contract with an individual, and essentially you can trust them to operate on certain parameters. So essentially I put a contractor is responsible for definite parameters. You can give a contractor parameters of what things exactly you expect to be done, the level of quality you want, and you can expect them to do them. And essentially a contractor can fulfill a bunch of business functions. They're going to get certain tasks done, kind of like you would on a house. Same thing building a farm business or running a farm business. And then you come after a contractor, and an example of this might be, let's say you're running a grass finishing business, and you've got 2 separate farms, and one farm is 30-45 minutes away, and it's just too far for you to comfortably do the work and chores. And so you hire a contractor to move the animals over there for you, and maybe they're doing the stocker herd, and then you have the finisher herd at your main farm. And that contractor role, he's definitely important to your business, but he's not an employee. He's doing tasks, but he's ultimately he's taking care of more than just tasks. He's making sure certain parameters are met and certain things are done within the business without being told. A manager in a business essentially oversees the business. He isn't making or calling all the major farm decisions, but he is definitely handling how to. He's deciding a lot of the when and the where, who is doing what, and he's overseeing the flow of the business. And he's the guy that's making sure things are getting done right. Fifth is you can have a partner in a business, and a close one to this might be a small corporation or a LLC. And a partner is essentially a situation where you're going to have joint ownership or shared ownership and shared reward, and also shared risk and shared responsibility. And in a partnership, you really, because two people are on an even playing field, so that they don't end up crossing over and clashing with each other, you need clearly defined roles for both of them and rewards. Whatever it may be. Maybe one person is responsible for the actual sales, another person is responsible for the marketing. Is there any crossover there? And how does that work? There has to be a lot of good cooperation in order to make partners work out. And then the sixth, which is really 5 and 6 go together, you have an owner, and you could also call him your business leader. And it could just be a sole proprietorship. That would be the most common. And an owner is in charge. He's making the big farm decisions, and he's deciding a lot of the what. He's deciding what actually happens. How to is something his manager may handle. An owner can potentially do all of his own management, but an owner is ultimately deciding what happens with the business. He's deciding the things that actually are chosen to be done. A leader is going to focus on doing the right things, not necessarily on doing things right. And hopefully your leader knows why he's doing things, because if he doesn't know why he's doing things, chances are he won't end up doing the right things. Anyway, these are 6 different, essentially, job or business titles, and kind of define where you fit in the organization. And for me, as I'm working and visiting different farms, one of the primary things I'm going to ask early on, and maybe it may just be me visiting a farm, I'm going to ask different people what their role or their job description is, so I figure out how their business is working or functioning together. If nobody knows what they're responsible for, it's very easy for a lot of things to slip through the cracks. George Washington, our first president, said once, "I've found that when one person has been dutifully executing their duties," and this isn't verbatim, when you put the responsibilities on 3 or more individuals, or 2 or 3 individuals, the duties are generally not fulfilled as well. Sometimes they're not even getting done at all. And so making sure accountability exists within an organization and there's a clear definition goes a long way to making the business function and stay structured. I was going to give one other caveat, because this is something I think about and continuing to think about, is if you are, when I talk about an owner, I want to be careful that I make the distinction. We're talking about who owns the business. We're not talking, and a business is, that's about marketing to customers. A business is largely an idea that you're putting forward. We're not talking about owning land or owning livestock. And so I made this little square here. This is something I think about from time to time. Any farm or ranch is going to probably end up in one of these 4 areas. And if you have land, maybe maybe you own, let's say you own the land and you own the livestock, and you also own the business. That would be this top category right here. Common situation today. It takes a lot of capital to do, but you own the land, you own the livestock, and you graze your graze. Another possibility is you own the business and you own your stock, but you don't own the land, and so you're leasing land. You still own the business. Most of y'all probably already know what custom grazing is, and Greg Judy's book, No Risk Ranching. The bottom line is, whether you own the land, whether you own the livestock, you can still own your own business. And so you could also own land, own livestock, and not own your business and have somebody else doing it. So a lot of business success and organization has very little to do with owning the actual capital assets, even though that is important. A lot of it comes down to is owning your own farm story and truly taking responsibility and ownership for the actual business and what runs, which is not in capital assets and investments primarily. Anyway, gang, hope that helps you. These are things I have to keep clear in my mind so I can explain to people where I'm at. And like I said in a previous video, right now I'm staying close to home and essentially doing part-time help, but I'm going to continue looking at different grazing opportunities as I move through my family's challenges. And so all of these different functions and where I fit in a farm business are always going to be on my mind. And with that, gang, I wish you all blessings for the journey and keep it real.